Welcome everyone to another episode of the Camper Report. We are we're about an hour later than what we were supposed to be. Both of our computers had to. It was funny. Both of our computers had to update at the same time, and then it just. I mean, the technical difficulties were out of the roof today,
On
but
full
we're
display.
here. We're here. Hopefully you guys were patient with us. And hopefully you guys didn't go away and wonder what are these guys doing. So, Joseph, how are you doing today? Good to have you on. It's been probably what 4 or 5
Beginning of the
months.
season.
Wait,
Yeah, way before the beginning of the season. I
yo,
mean, I think
yeah,
we
I
had
think it
one
was
right before.
really okay.
Maybe
Yeah, I
not.
can I can
It's been a
look it up.
while.
I can look it up. But welcome everyone. How are you doing today, man? A lot of NFL stuff to talk about. Just a lot has happened this last week.
I'm doing well. The last time we talked, there was so much uncertainty. There's still so much uncertainty in the NFL as usual. I mean, my birds are 5-0 from a football standpoint. I can't be more happier, and I'm excited to get into some of these topics.
Yeah, and definitely because there's like for everything from coaches firing to getting fired and then to incredible games. The one thing that I am a little bit not as stoked about is this week there's like two good games if you look. There's the Sunday night football game and the 425 game. And then the Thursday night game that's happening right now is a terrible game. I mean, who even
Oh,
scheduled that?
I saw
That's
someone say that the like Amazon Prime alone bought the rights and spent, I want to say like over $80 million just to stream the Broncos game last week. That was an absolute trash fire of a game.
Yeah. So that Broncos game was interesting for sure. We'll get into a little more of them, but let's get right into these topics though.
Yeah, let's do it.
We've got quite a bit to talk about. So, let's get to the first one. Me and you were talking about this on the phone and you brought up a very good point and I was like, "Okay, let's talk about it because this is something that is really that a lot of teams did. You saw the Rams strategy was to get this quarterback, trade for a quarterback that was experienced, that was a veteran, and then build their team around that. And a lot of teams and basically give up picks and give up capital to win now, and a lot of teams were like, okay, well, the Rams won the Super Bowl, so we can do it too. And you saw, I mean, here are a list. Colts did it, Broncos did it, Raiders not really, but and then the Panthers somewhat did it. So there were a few teams this year, and if you can name any other ones that did it, but there were a few teams this year that did this Ram strategy. And yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
So, I mean, there's two teams that come to my mind immediately, and that's the Colts and the Broncos, with, of course, the Broncos being the center point of sort of the offseason and how much drama this offseason was. So many stars changing teams. Um, I'd like to call it the Rams way. Like you say, I think the Rams already had a team in place, right? So they
Yeah.
bring Stafford in as the final puzzle piece. It's the same way, sort of, really, the Colts. I mean, while yes, they were a Carson Wentz pad performance away from making the playoffs, Carson Wentz unfortunately was at the center of a lot of their controversy last year. They would have been a much better team. They were much better than the record stated. They felt like they were a quarterback away. So did the Broncos. Um, it's a really tough one. When Matt Ryan got traded, I immediately thought, my word, he's got about the best luck as any quarterback could get. I mean, going from a team that is really in the moment of sort of a rebuild to a team that was win now, I thought it really couldn't get much better for Ryan, and he's 2-2-1 now. And there's a lot of questions about whether what it is. What is it? Is Matt Ryan the QB that we didn't think he was? Is Matt Ryan the QB we thought he was going to be, because he's not showing it? Um, where's the issue? I was looking at some stats, and we could pull it. Matt
Hmm.
Ryan has not really been the terrible quarterback we've seen up until this year. So,
Yeah.
it's a tough one. I was looking through the statistics. It's been 4 years since he had a single digit interception season. That's
Dang.
that's a concerning thing. He's now on pace for 21 interceptions this season, I believe that would beat his record for the most amount of
Wow.
interceptions in a season. He already has 7 interceptions. We're a week 5. We've got 11 more games, 12 more games to go.
That's
And I mean, if you count that up, that's a 21 plus interception season. I doubt he's going to match that total, but still, it's
right.
something to think about. The QBR quarterback rating has consistently declined since the 2018 season, with a little spike in the last 2 years. But the biggest thing is he had a 67% completion rating last year, which isn't that bad. I mean, that's pretty decent for a
Yeah.
coach. And if you think, that begs the question, is it coaching? And that's what I was thinking about today when I was doing my statistics. Reich has had 3 QBs. It's not always the QB's fault, but Reich has also lost a bunch of coaches. Sirianni, Eberflus. Those are the 2 that first come to my mind. Eberflus was the defensive coordinator. Defense definitely doesn't look like the beast it had been. Eberflus is a first-year coach with the Bears, I believe. And yeah, it's been weird. So the question is, like, what is the Colts' problem? I know they've got injuries. All teams do. But yeah, that's my take on the Colts. I don't see it entirely as Matt Ryan's fault. He is on pace to have one of his worst seasons ever, from a standpoint of interceptions goes. But he's not. It's not like they got a bad quarterback and relying to themselves. And of course, Father Time does catch up to us. So maybe that's what it is with Matt Ryan. And maybe Reich has got to rethink his strategy. So
Yeah, I mean I'm talking about the Broncos, the Colts completely agree. That whole team, the whole Colts team, I think has underperformed this year. You have the offensive line that was going to be top 5, and they're not very good.
yep,
You look at Matt Ryan, he has no juice on his throws. Like, even
yep,
I watched that Broncos game and he
yep,
has no zip on him. He's just not looking great. And then he's been, like you said, 7 interceptions is a lot. He played terrible against the Broncos and somehow
yep,
they won. But the 2 wins that they've had were not very impressive, and they've looked a
no,
lot worse than a 2-win team.
yeah,
So, I mean, Frank Reich, I think, is out by this year. I don't know who was pushing for the Matt Ryan trade, but I think he was. I do,
yeah,
and you go from Carson Wentz to Matt Ryan. That's not a good look. And I think after what happened with Carson Wentz last year, I think he said, "I want a guy who has proven to win,
yep,
who has been solid," and I think he was confident in his play calling, to where when Kyle Shanahan was coaching Matt Ryan, I think he was like, if I can get what Kyle Shanahan got out of Matt Ryan, then we can be Super Bowl winners, Super Bowl contenders,
yeah.
whatever. And it doesn't,
That's a good take.
yeah, and so, but it doesn't help that Jonathan Taylor has been out the last game, but that's the most I think that is
Yeah.
the most underperforming team this
Well,
year.
I'm going to play the devil's advocate, disagree with you, because I'll tell you my take on the Broncos before I get to them. I will
Yeah,
say your take on Ryan is good. I mean, but I will say this: were the expectations too high? I mean, this is a guy who really didn't, and I don't think it was his fault entirely. We'll get to coaches that I think
right.
could get fired, but I don't think Arthur Smith entirely is the worst coach in Atlanta. I don't think it was totally a coach quarterback problem. The Falcons just have so many holes in their roster. Drafting was never good. They had so many injuries to such key players, Deion Jones in particular. Guy couldn't stay healthy. There's another safety that I can't think of his name now. He went to the Cowboys. He couldn't stay healthy. And it's a really tough one. But this is the one that's the most mind-boggling to me. I did not expect the Colts to be like a 15-win team, not even a 14-win team, but I expected them to be very competent, and I have seen a terrible team, which segues into my Broncos team. To me, this was the team to beat in the AFC specifically. I thought personally going into the year, I thought that Russell Wilson was going to rival the Bills for their record. This defense was insanely good with this defensive line with Bradley Chubb.
Yeah,
You've got back of the corners were good. Ronald Darby was having a secretly semi, and he wasn't terrible. And they've got their safety. They've got a good linebacking core. And this was a team. And then you took it on offense. You go, oh my word, Russell Wilson goes to a team that has Judy, Sutton, Hamler, and Timo Patrick. And I'm thinking that's a 4 wide receiver group. That is so much better than his current than his previous team. And that is where it leads us to the question. The Broncos sit at 2-3, 5 weeks through the season. If you take that and you multiply that by another 3, we're what you would think about. We're about a third of the way through the season. That means this team is a 6-7 win team. That blows my mind. Is
Right.
Russell Wilson the QB that we thought he was? I was looking at his QBR. It's fallen the last 4 years, but it's still in the hundreds. It's not a bad
Yeah.
QB. But then it's like Geno Smith is showing that Lockett and Metcalf are super important. I think everyone devalued those two receiver positions, especially in the fantasy football realm. But even in NFL football, I thought they had said, you know what? With a better O-line, this is the funny stat that blew my
Yeah.
mind. With a better O-line, everyone said Russell Wilson's going to be the QB he was when they won the Super Bowl. Get this. The O-line has not been good for the Broncos. Okay, I just want to get you to give an idea of how many sacks do you think they've let up in 5 games?
Let me see. Last week, I want to say 4. The week before against the Niners. No, was the week before against? No, it was
It
2 weeks
was
before. Oh, it was the week before against the
2
Niners.
weeks. 2 weeks, I think.
I want to say that game they probably gave up. I know it was a lot. They gave up like 6
So
and
they
no
have had
2. Well, okay, go ahead. I
they
want
have
to
a
say
total.
through 5 games, maybe like 20 sacks.
Okay, so you're a little over. They've
Okay.
given up 16, which is still incredible. But
Hmm.
guess how much the entire O-line gave up for the Seahawks last year?
Wow, that O line last year was bad.
Yo, but
Um,
this is what blew my mind. You got to guess it.
17 game season. I want to say 51.
33.
Really?
And that's what blew my mind. So the Broncos have already given up half the amount of sacks in 5 games as the entire heavily scrutinized Seahawks O-line did
Well,
last year.
I will push back on that. I think if I go back and watch the all 22 film, and some of it I think is the play calling. I
Oh,
think
sure.
Nathaniel Hackett is, I don't know. I think his system is a lot different to
Oh, yeah. I
Pete
agree.
Carroll's, and he doesn't
Yep.
let Russell Wilson play. But also, I think Russell Wilson holds the ball, and
But I
because
mean,
that, go ahead.
yeah. Well, and that's what I'm getting. It's like I don't think that the O-line is to blame for the the Broncos, but everyone was heavily
Yeah,
scrutinizing the Seahawks O-line. And they were like, with a better O-line and a good receiving core. I mean, and I'm like, they've done nothing. They've done literally nothing. Their 2 wins, going back to it, one of their wins was against the Houston Texans, and they won by, I want to say, 5 points or something like that. I mean, it
yeah.
was bad.
It was like
So I
7.
agree
Yeah,
with
it was
you.
17 to
I agree
12.
with your devil's advocate. I agree that, like, yes, Wilson's holding the ball too long. It blew my mind that the Broncos O-line has given up already half the amount of sacks that the Seahawks did all last year. And we're not talking about the O-line. The O-line has not filled up. I know Garrett Bowles is now he's out potentially for the season, I think. They've
Yeah.
got injuries at running back, but good teams find a way to win. We can talk about world. I know we're going to talk about later on in the show some things about the Eagles, so I'll hold it on that. I don't ever want to hear excuses for I don't ever want to hear excuses for O-line injuries because if you have a good O-line coach, it's the next man up. I'm not saying you get the same production out of a left tackle as you would your backup. I mean, as backup left tackle as you would your starting left tackle, but it's a next man up mentality, and I just don't think the Broncos are built for it. And that's sort of where I finish on that.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I always knew their offensive line was bad, even coming into this season. I always knew that was their weakness. And I mean, that was the one thing that they really didn't upgrade with the Seahawks from. And so you can get all the weapons around him, but I think Russell Wilson to really flourish needs a pretty decent O line. And again, I don't think he's the same person because I think his mobility could really bail him out of a lot of things if he did hold the ball. And so now that he's not as mobile, he's lost a little bit of that speed.
Ooh,
I
and that's
think,
another thing. Go ahead.
yeah, I think he's definitely a player, just like I think Russell Westbrook as well. Like
Yeah,
both
I saw
guys
the
relied a
comparison.
little too much on their athleticism.
Well,
And when it's starting to go away, yeah, it's
so
not
get
good.
this. He's got 171 rushing yards. Okay. It's not a lot. I mean, crap. Like Jalen Hurts got that in a game and a half. But dude, he only had like 300 rushing yards last year. So,
Right.
but I think what it is he has tried to become more of a pocket passing quarterback. And what made Russell Wilson so exciting in the past has
Mhm.
been the fact that he can stretch the field with his legs. So my whole thought is, if he does not go back to that, this is the end of the Russell Wilson era. And I'm not trying to be dramatic about it, but
Yeah.
it's, in my opinion, what made Russell Wilson exciting was his ability to escape the pocket. And he didn't even have that great of an O line in the Seattle during some of those years where he had good seasons. But he escaped the pocket, he found his receivers, and I just wonder: is it a system? Is it Nathaniel Hackett, or is it just him trying to be like I heard on a fantasy football talk show? Like, is he trying to be like a Drew Brees and a Peyton Manning where they stay in the pocket to deliver the pass? It's like, is that what he's trying to be? And I just wonder if it's either that or if it's a coaching or if it's a combination. But he is not the same player that I think the Broncos thought they were getting when they gave up, was it three
Was it?
first round picks?
Yeah, and
I mean,
bunch of
that's
players.
that's terrible.
Yeah, I
But
feel bad for them. And I mean, real quick before we leave this segment, Broncos are one of the worst team. Well, I would say I think second worst or a bottom 5 teams in third down efficiency. Last game they were 2 for 15. So yeah, yeah, that's not
terrible,
good. And I will
terrible.
say real quick on the Rams, just because this topic was a little bit, I think the Rams for sure, they need to get it together too, because they're playing that one man system, basically target Cooper Kupp 1,000 times a game and hope it all goes well. And they're not using their running backs and they're not getting creative. And it's kind of,
Yep.
I mean, Sean McVay's having his Kyle Shanahan, like last year, it was a little bit like this the first 8 weeks for the 49ers as well. It was a one-dimensional system. The offense was terrible. And luckily this year, the 49ers have been able to, I guess, learn a little bit quicker, because the first 3 weeks were bad, but then we were starting to get in a little bit of a groove. So that's just my
Yeah.
opinion.
No, that's very right. Yeah, I mean, you couldn't be more true. I think that's really probably one of the issues where I think that's probably one of the issues where I think a lot of people are going wrong is like, yeah, I mean, the Rams, I know how hard it is to repeat, let alone go back to the Super playoffs when you win a Super Bowl, let alone even go to the Super Bowl. My biggest thing is I I knew that the Rams, it was a special season last year, and I knew they weren't going to be the same team. I'm not as concerned about the Rams because of the amount of talent they have on their team. I know they have some injured players. But yeah, I am not going to say it right now, but if I had to make a bold prediction, I would say the Rams missed the playoffs, but I think it's too early to tell right now.
Yeah, true. Uh, I think all the teams that tried this experiments will miss the playoffs, which is kind of
Oof,
sad.
that's
But
bold. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think it could happen. Lambs are not getting younger and haven't had a first round pick since trading for Jared Goff many years ago. They traded away the future, and it's showing now. Yeah, a lot of teams have done that. A lot of screwed teams. Thank you, David McNew, for coming in. If a big name player gets a season ending injury, hold on 1 second. I think he's referring to Emmanuel Mosley. If a big name player gets a season ending injury, they don't have the depth to fill in. I hope nobody gets injured. I wish on no Niner. Yeah, Emmanuel Mosley, that was sad. Yeah, that could have hurt us
I
big
mean,
time.
and it's that next man up mentality. We didn't see it much with the Rams. I felt like they overall played a relatively very healthy season last year. But I go back to my Eagles and their Super Bowl run. I mean, we were missing our left tackle. We were missing. I mean, I think there was like 11 starters total that were on injured reserve by the time we went to the Super Bowl. And it was that
Mhm.
next man up mentality. Players got a lot of valuable playing time. And I mean, good example, Halupulavati Vaitai. I don't even think he's a starter for the um, uh, Lions anymore. He got a 4-year contract because of it.
Mhm.
And he wasn't even that good of a left tackle, but he filled in really well for Jason Peters, and who at the time was actually quite good. Yeah, I mean, this is where we're at right now, and I think it's very hard to repeat when you're a Super Bowl winning team, let alone when your team literally was kept together. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting situation. So
Falcons are playing good for not having a franchise QB. We don't either for the season. I hope Trey Lance turns into our franchise QB. Me too, man. I don't know. That's a big unknown that's a whole nother story that I've covered. A lot of people
Loaded
have
question.
covered. His future is in major question because I'm not even sure. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in the years to come, contract wise for him as well. That was a huge blow right when he was getting going. Russell Wilson is a system QB. Yeah,
You could argue that.
maybe. Here's the thing. I've always said that Pete Carroll, if he um if he goes 9-8, even though he won't win the Coach of the Year award, I would like to see him get it. And there's a possibility that he might go 9-8 this year. There's a possibility.
I mean, I would say, if we were looking at a handful of coach of the year, it's so hard to dub it right now. Probably has got to be, unfortunately, Brian Daboll, or Doug Peterson, more or less that Brian Daboll. But yeah, I mean, Pete Carroll. Everyone was thinking, Pete Carroll's basically coaching himself into being fired. And I mean, who's laughing now? I'm not saying they're a great team, but
Yeah.
Geno Smith looks like he's got round backs in time. I feel like I was in, freshman year of high school at this point. And that's how long it's been since Geno Smith has literally been in the NFL. So, yeah, crazy stuff. So,
Yeah.
but
We'll get to some other topics,
yeah.
but we'll get to we'll get to some other comments, but we'll get to the next topic. Real quick though, there's a new Grandizers in the chat, so thank you to you. We'll answer your questions in just a second. Damian Lee, never seen. Well, I might have seen you once, but salute to you. So thank you for coming in. He says the Raiders went personal against Russell Wilson. They played
Oh, that's great.
Ciara, Baby Daddy, Future
Oh,
music
that's
during the
going.
game. Wait, they did? Dang. Anyways.
That's going.
Um so let's get to the Matt Rhule fire. Oh, go ahead.
I was saying Ciara wants future back. She doesn't see a future in Russell Wilson. Burn. I'm just kidding.
Boom. No, I'm just kidding. Matt Rhule is fired. Who are some potential coaches out after this season? We've seen Josh McDaniels won. Even the Bears coach maybe.
Matt
We've
Eberflus.
seen Frank Reich we just talked about. What are Matt Eberflus? Who are some potential coaches? What is your reaction to this firing and what do you think about this?
So I have a list of actually three. I have a list of 8 coaches that I think are on the hot seat. I'll name them off in rapid fire really quickly, but I will also comment to the Matt Rhule firing. I said this: I'm never for in-season firings. It screws over the entire team. There's no identity. The only team that I've ever seen it really benefit was Bisaccia with the Raiders last year. I thought the Raiders rallied around him, but it was sort of a different type of firing when all this stuff came out about John Gruden. So I will say that was a very unique situation. In-season firings are always terrible. I thought that the Panthers should have either fired Rhule before the season or after. Under Rhule, the Panthers brought in P.J. Walker, Sam Darnold, Teddy Bridgewater, and the final more like name star Baker Mayfield.
Right.
They're really not suffering from Baker's trade because Cleveland pays his salary this year, or pretty much all of it. But I mean, under Matt Rhule, they brought in guys who just didn't produce. And if I look at all these guys on paper, none of them really stood out except Baker Mayfield. And I think Baker Mayfield was a product of an insane run game, wasn't the player that everyone thought they were getting. I don't think Baker Mayfield's a terrible quarterback, but I think his lack of leadership has definitely been exposed. His height and the way that he doesn't know how to use it, his small stature to be able to gain a leg up like some of these smaller quarterbacks have done. Yeah, so I'm for the Matt Rhule firing. I'm not for the in-season firing. I think the Panthers are about to implode. As someone who lives in the state of North Carolina, I think it's sort of fun to watch personal Panthers fans lose it. But, I mean, we could see Christian McCaffrey, Brian Burns. Those are the 2 names that are right now being floated around as potential trade targets. And if those guys go, Panthers country will absolutely burn. And it's imploding, and it's imploding quick. And I will say that if you're holding on to any stock in any fantasy football drafts, I would be looking to get rid of both of those players or hold them in the hopes that potentially they go to a better team. With that being said, my list of players, I think this is this is in order for the first four, no, but for the next four, yes. For the first four, yes, it's in order. For the next four, no. I've got Frank Wright, Nathaniel. I've got Frank Wright.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I just said keep talking. I was just
you're good. Frank Wright, Nathaniel Hackett, Cliff Kingsbury, Ron Rivera. All of those teams, super high expectations going into the season. None of them have met them. My next four, Eberflus, McDaniels, Arthur Smith is a loaded one. Do the Falcons sort of stick with him because they don't have a franchise QB, and do the tight end stick with Mike Vrabel? I could see both of those guys being surprise firings, especially the Vrabel firing. But I will say that my four in Ron Rivera, Kingsbury, Hackett, and Reich. I think Ron Rivera, after targeting Carson Wentz, if the Commanders don't win tonight, I think Ron Rivera's days are massively numbered. Those are my top four. And then Eberflus, McDaniel, Smith, and Vrabel. I would say the bottom two would be shockers. I wouldn't be shocked about Eberflus. I think the Bears are a dumpster fire of a team. And McDaniel, I think it's too early for them to fire him. Like, my God, he's dropped expectations. So,
yeah. I mean, early in the season, he was good. They were posting record numbers. I think you have to be patient with McDaniel. I think a few guys that will be out probably near this deadline. And that was a good point that you brought up. And that's a topic that we don't have for today. But if you guys have anybody that you think should get traded around the trade deadline, throw them up for us. We'll put them on the screen. But I do think there's a few guys that you said Rivera could very well get traded before the season ends. I'm saying Kingsbury as well. I think you give this guy, I mean, I think if he lasts till the end of the season, I think he's going to be the first one out of all of those coaches because he's had the best chance. I think Eberflus, you can make the excuse of, well, you haven't had the best team, but then again, your quarterback really isn't trending in the right direction. And so maybe you give Eberflus another year to build that team a little bit more. And Frank Reich, I think, has to be out by this year. I mean, that team is, we talked about it last segment, has to be out this year. Josh McDaniels is another one. It's like you went out, like that team for the Raiders is, and we'll talk about it later on in the show, but that team for the Raiders is really good. They went and picked up Chandler Jones. They have Max Crosby. Is it Max Crosby?
Yeah.
No, it's Max Crosby. And then they have Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs, who is in a contract year, looked really good last game. And he's just making questionable calls. So anyways, we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But he's a guy that I think, because of his history, I don't know if he has very much leniency, even if it's his first year. I think the guys that were put in a good situation, you're looking at Reich, you're looking at, and I think Reich had an excuse. Hackett, yes. Oh, why didn't I think of that right away? That guy's going to be, I said a few days ago that Hackett was going to be out before the season ends. I don't think so, but there's a few names. And Reich last year, and he had an excuse with Carson Wentz. No excuse this year. And I think just the guys that have had better teams are going to be out right away. It's not sad to see, but it's like,
shocking.
Wow, shocking, especially for the Raiders. I kind of saw the Broncos thing coming, but for the Raiders, I really did think that team was going to be really good. So,
yeah, it's crazy stuff. It's going to be an interesting season. I don't know how many more in-season firings we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if of all these teams, we don't really see any in-season firings. Judging by the way the NFC East looks, if Rivera loses another 2 games, it'd be very hard for the Commanders to even make a push. So I could see why he wouldn't get fired, because sometimes firings take place when a team thinks they still have a chance to make the playoffs, but just not with the current quarterback. I mean, current coach. It's really a mess in DC, because the problem that I see now is they have this quarterback situation where Howell is this rookie guy who some people had going like late first round. They got him in like the 4th or 5th round. Is the first time that we ever saw that many quarterbacks slip to late round drafts. And it's like, now whoever takes over coach, he's got to figure out it. Well, this is first if Rivera gets fired, but I will believe he will. especially after what he said. But that whole oh my God, we could talk 2 hours about the Commanders. How now Dan Snyder is trying to come out and say that he has dirt on Roger Goodell, and that
Yeah.
all the owners hate each other. And then an owner responded and said, actually, all the owners hate Dan Snyder. So it's just a dumpster fire of a team. But now it's like, if he gets fired, a new coach has to come in and has to decide: do I want a clean house and not give Sam Howell an excuse or a chance, or do I want to give Sam Howell a chance and go through another year of losing football? And that's what's really unfortunate about Sam Howell, because he may not even get a chance to prove himself on a team because of just the way it's formatted. And so yeah, I'm sad. I'm sad for some of these players what's the guy that Sam Howell, and then there was I liked him a lot coming out of Ole Miss. He was the quarterback. Can't think of his name now.
What's his name?
Matt
The guy who
Corral.
broke his
Or Corral. I thought he was actually one of the better quarterbacks coming out of college. I think the only quarterback now that he has a potential positive future is the Titans, Malik Willis, but that's another story, and I'm going off topic. But yeah, a lot of shocks in the NFL this year.
For sure. Let's see here. Let's get into a little bit of comments. Well, teams wanted to do what the Bucs did. They Tom Brady their team. I'll bet Tom Brady was not a trade, but Rams went the trade route. Yeah. It worked for the
back-to-back Super Bowls. I mean, you can't deny it. Both of those two teams each won it. But I think we both thought I doubted Stafford, but Stafford and Brady are a lot different. Now it's looking like they're a lot different than Russell Wilson and Matt Ryan. I could definitely say this. I wouldn't have said that Russell Wilson was a worse quarterback than Stafford, but it's looking like Stafford was just in a really bad situation. I wholeheartedly agree with you that Tom Brady is sort of what kicked off that wheelhouse. I'm telling you right now, the Buccaneers were a stacked team. This team drafted so well, but they just didn't have a quarterback. And they made it so attractive that Tom couldn't turn it down. I mean, he walked into a top 3 O-line. They had one of the best receiving corps. They had great tight ends. When I look at that team on paper, I'm not surprised that they beat the Chiefs, because they had a top 3 offensive line at the time. They had O.J. Howard, Rob Gronkowski, those two guys, great tight ends. Then they had Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. People would have killed to have those two guys as tight end receivers. Running backs, they got Leonard Fournette, playoff Lenny. They had Ronald Jones at the time. He was a decent running back. Then you go on the defensive side of the ball. They have a great defensive lineman. They have great linebackers. The only one thing that I think they were maybe slightly weak on is corners. And what blows my mind is that they were the 6th seed.
Yeah, it's true.
So, anyways,
Mike McCarthy is gone. Also, after this season, Dallas wants Sean Payton. Yeah, there's going to be a ton of teams. Maybe.
I think you're wrong on that. I think McCarthy. I mean,
I don't think Sean Payton wants to coach the Dallas Cowboys.
No, I think quite the contrary. I think he would, but I think Jerry Jones is too happy with the way that McCarthy is handling things. But look, it's week 5. The Cowboys are notoriously bad for losing towards the end of the year. If McCarthy misses the playoffs, he's gone. And unfortunately, I'd say Sean Payton takes over that team. And I don't like the idea of that. So I hope McCarthy just does just enough, just like Jason Garrett, for like a half decade. And the Cowboys fans have to suffer through it, because that's what they deserve. Anyway. But yeah.
Grandizer says, which McDaniel?
McDaniels, Josh McDaniels, not McDaniel.
Yeah.
Mike McDaniel.
Yeah. Washington has the defense. It's the offense that's the problem.
I can agree with
that. And then the coach who is starting to feel the heat is Dan Campbell. His coaching has cost the Lions 2 games. Their defense has gotten worse.
I don't think so.
I don't know, because I guess that he has a point there, but I think that team is still rebuilding. He's
changed the culture. He's changed the culture of Detroit. I mean, this is a team that actually now you see wants to win. I'm not saying he's a great coach. I am saying that while I could agree with you maybe a year from now, I think they're gonna end up getting one of the better picks in the draft. They're gonna make a play for a rookie quarterback. I think Dan Campbell loses his job if they can't make it work after next year. But I think the Lions have made a commitment, and I actually really like Dan Campbell. But that's a hot take. I see where you're coming from. Yes, he may not be the greatest coach, But if he's wise, he'll reevaluate his coaching positions, and he may even fire some people at the end of the year. That
For
defense
sure.
is terrible. But name me outside of Akuda, their linebacker, who's that 6th-round pick guy who's really good, and Aiden Hutchinson. Name me who else is good on that defense. There's
Yeah.
really not that many good players. So,
And yeah, I think Kyle Shanahan, like, he's kind of similar to what Dan Campbell. He changed that culture.
yeah,
And even they had a few seasons before that Super Bowl that they went 4-12 were not very good.
yeah,
So
yep.
I don't think so. I mean, maybe. Okay, so let's get to the Bills. Their offense, wow, that really good. Their offense is really good. And they do it basically by passing the ball. Now, last game, I believe they only passed it like 27 times, but it doesn't matter
They
because
need
their
to
defense
pass
is
it more.
also really good. Von
Yeah.
Miller, Tre'Davious White, I believe, is still there.
Yep.
Just a all-around really good team, and you're playing Josh Allen, just playing the best football of his life. He's efficient. He can throw it at a high, like, just, I mean, I think he completed it. I can actually look up his exact stats. Let me look it up. Josh Allen, because I think he only completed it like 20 times, and he had like 400 yards. Let's see here. Josh Allen, 20 for 31, 424 yards, 4 TDs, 1 interception. So that's an average of like 5 let me see. So 5, that's an average of 15, a little more than 15 yards per throw, which is crazy.
Insane.
So Bills are an insane offensive powerhouse. Are there any teams that can slow them down? Because I don't see it. Not even the Chiefs, man, because their defense is not that great. Hasn't been looking great.
So I'll say the first game that's going to be interesting and worth watching is the Bills-Packers game. They play them in a couple of weeks. I think the Packers have a defense that could definitely really frustrate Josh Allen. It's just whether or not the Packers offense can keep up, and I'd say probably not. I like the Philadelphia Eagles as the number one team to be able to stop them. Our defense is playing really well. We have our cornerbacks, prior to Slay missing part of the game against the Jags, and then Maddox missing the last 2 games, our cornerbacks were top 5 total. Like, we had, I think, 3 cornerbacks in the top 10, which is an insane feat. The biggest thing that I have a concern with the Bills is what is going to be the Bills' kryptonite, and I think it could be themselves. They're 14th in the run game right now, and I just know that when the playoffs start and weather gets bad, running the ball is super important. It's the only reason why the Eagles made the playoffs last year. They were a crappy team. I'm not going to mince it. They were crappy, and they ran the ball down the people's throats. They ran it during bad weather. It was easy to run the ball when the weather was not great and throwing was difficult, and they went to the playoffs because of it. I think the Bills really have got to start. I know Devin Singletary is one of those weird guys where he's definitely talented, but he's not a mauler. And I know
Right.
James Cook has that opportunity. Zach Moss, both of those guys have the opportunity to be maulers, but I just don't see a commitment to the run game. And I'm going to tell you right now, while I do have the Bills as my favorites to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl, I am wondering if they're going to run along some of these hardships that could end up costing them the season if they don't know how to salt the game away. Another thing that I was really PO'd about, and I'm like, man, Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, they deserve not to be fired after this. But they were up like by 3 or 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and Josh Allen was still taking snaps. Like, this team is Josh Allen. It's where their identity is. If you are beating a
Yeah.
crappy Pittsburgh team by 3 touchdowns with 12 minutes left to go, I'm sorry. A comeback is just not happening. I know it's happened before, but that's for teams that actually show that they want to win. The Pittsburgh Steelers are a dumpster fire of a team. And
Right.
that's all I have to say about it. I think the Eagles are one of the few teams that probably could stop them. Even then, maybe not. But I think it's a real possibility that that just the only people that can stop the Bills are the Bills themselves. And I really am looking forward to that Bills Packers game because I do think that the Packers defense could definitely give the Bills some problems.
Yeah, I think the only team so far that has been able to slightly is the Ravens, but that team kind of fell apart in the second half. And I mean, the Ravens had them figured out. I believe during that game at one point Josh Allen was 2 for 11. And that was in the rain, but the Ravens had him figured out. They just weren't they didn't run the ball enough at the end there. They let it the rain kind of just flipped on them. They let it get to them. The Bills figured him out. Their offense was stagnant in the second half, but the Ravens really did figure him out. And then Josh Allen just went off in that second half. So
Yeah.
I guess like this next Chiefs game is going to be a big game, but I would say like the Chiefs didn't do great defensively against the Raiders. Their run game is really, I mean, they allowed Josh Jacobs almost 150 or 130 yards. So I think this next game is going to be a lot farther. I think the Bills are going to win up by a lot more than people think. But I would say, like you said, like, I don't think it's ever been possible in NFL history that a quarterback has actually carried a team completely to a Super Bowl and won it. Now, that defense is really pretty good. I mean, they
It
have a
is.
few stars on that. That defensive line is really good. And talk about Von Miller. Like, he kind of looked a few years like he was falling off. And now he's resurrected his career as a top pass rusher and a guy, he resurrected it like with the Rams and now has continued it with the Bills. So I think it's a lot more of a complete team defensively. But
Yeah,
yeah, that
I
run
agree.
game is a little, I don't know, man. I don't really like what they do there, but
Yeah,
whatever.
it's going to be interesting. I'm curious to see if it's their kryptonite. It may not be. They may go all the way to the Super Bowl and win with ease. I think they have that quality type of team, but at the same time, I think running the ball is super key, especially in the later months, and especially in the type of field and conditions that they have to play in up in Buffalo. So
Yeah,
that's my
for
take on
sure.
that.
For sure. Changing culture is one thing. You have to win games at the end of this day. Lions got the #1 offense, but a horrible defense. Granted, the talent is not there, but Lions defense was bad last year too. Yeah, man, we'll see with them. They're a big I think it's only 5 weeks through the season. Give them time. I think a 7-win season would be a win for them.
I agree. I think Dan Campbell definitely has to win games. I just wonder if he sort of has a framework in place.
Hmm.
I could see Dan Campbell sort of keeping the. I agree because I agree with that comment. Culture is great, but if you're not winning games, whoop de do. It's the
Yeah.
same thing. Peterson was great, but towards the end, he just wasn't winning games. Now, there's a whole other bunch of things that was wrong with the Eagles organization that may still be wrong, but they just are shielding it with their 5 wins. But I agree with that statement. I just don't. Of all my teams, coaches on the hot seat, Dan Campbell is really he's past even Arthur Smith and Matt Rhule. But I could be wrong, and I'm willing to eat my words if I am.
Yeah. Real quick, Damian Lee comes in. Pittsburgh wants a first for Mason Rudolph. Totally, man. That's great. And good luck to them. Um, he was terrible a few years. Oh my gosh, I remember that. Ben, do you follow other teams' content creators? Yeah, I follow one Panthers Nation podcast, which you actually put me onto, Grandizer, and then I follow. Let's see. I follow Tom Grossi. He's a big one. Go follow him because he's fun. I follow Brandon Perna. There's a few other people as well. Not too much, but I'm not as high. Like, I don't follow the Lions as much, but I do follow Bills and Chiefs. I will give those people a listen once in a while as well. Seahawks is a big one that I follow. Rams, go subscribe to Payo Time if you haven't already. So yeah, those are all great. And then, so let's get to the next topic. What were your concerns for the Eagles versus the Cardinals? And is DeMeco going to the Cardinals next year? Because we already named Kingsbury as one of the I think many coaches to be out after this year. I think he's going to be one of the first. But yeah, what were some of your concerns?
So I didn't like the game plan in the first half. It was weird. We seemed like we controlled the game. We went up 14 points, and then we sort of just stopped. And we went up 14 points because of like
Right.
some bad plays that we ended up cashing in on. But it just didn't feel like it was so quick, and we went up so quickly by 14. It didn't seem totally real. Then they come back, they tie it. We go 17-14, and then they go 17-17, and then it's 20-17, and then they miss the field goal. We abandoned the run entirely. That's probably the number one thing. I didn't even think we played a terrible, terrible game, even though there's always room for improvement. I did not like the way we defended the Cardinals on their drive when they missed the field goal. Rondale Moore was running open in the middle of the field with not even a guy 5 yards around him. And it's like they were so fearful to run the ball, to stop the pass, the deep threats, that they basically were playing this zone that was so soft that my flipping kid could run through it. You know what I mean? Like crap. And so, like, for me, it's like if you're going to play that type of offense, all it takes is someone who's going to capitalize on that, and it would have been a touchdown with nobody's business. Kyler Murray, super stupid play. I don't know if you watched those highlights, but he slid.
Yeah, I did.
Oh my gosh! I mean, so with that being said,
bruh, he was wide open. He wouldn't even gotten. He wouldn't have even gotten hit.
Yep.
Like wide open.
Terrible call.
Terrible IQ.
Call. Terrible execution. Oh, it was terrible. But my biggest thing is I didn't like the fact that we abandoned the run. So it was really a combination. I'd like to see us tighten up on defense. We've been pretty good defensively. Didn't think we were that great. We got lucky they didn't have Hopkins. But you know, with as good corners as we have, we shouldn't be playing that open zone. Like put man up, put some safeties back there, trust your corners, but don't be playing so soft defense just because you're afraid they'll go over the top and they'll score a touchdown. Like so. That was one of my things. And D'Amico Ryans is a potential coach for the Cardinals. I'll say this: I think D'Amico Ryans is a great coach, being an ex-Eagles player. I saw how much of a leader he was on our team. One of the things that I will say with D'Amico Ryans, I think whoever's going to take over the Cardinals, they could very well pick a very defensive-minded coach. They're not getting rid of Kyler Murray. He's a special player. Don't get me wrong; he maybe has his flaws, but he's still a special player. If you have a defensive coordinator come in, they can appoint a good offensive coordinator. Who knows? Maybe a guy like Frank Reich.
True.
And then you have a guy who's going to develop a relationship with Kyler Murray, and you have a defensive-minded coach who can focus on other stuff. So I could definitely see a defensive-minded coach going to the Cardinals. I would be not shocked is not the right word, but he would obviously be going to a division rival. But that does happen, and so yeah, I would say the Cardinals are going to have a new coach by the end of the year, and I could see it being D'Amico Ryans.
I think, I mean, that play at the end of the game was just like, even the commentators were like, what the actual, like they were like there was still like 22 seconds on the clock. You could have run it up the middle, gotten a few more yards, and then
they could have spiked the ball. They could have spiked the ball and had 3 shots to the end zone in that much time.
It's crazy, but whatever. I mean, I think the Cardinals, it's crazy because I think the one concern with the Eagles, is that this team, you look at it, they've only played one team over 500. Like they've played 2-3, 2-3. Like, I don't know, man.
They're 2-3 now. I would say it's unfair because I think they played almost every single team was above or at 500 when they beat them. I tend to agree with you. Look, Cowboys is a good example. I'm not talking too much. I think we could beat the Cowboys. I think we're talking with the last question of the night. But yeah, this is a big decider. If we beat the Cowboys, I don't want to hear anyone make excuses. Cowboys have a great defense. Offense is obviously a little bit hampered because of the Cooper Rush. But he's been a good quarterback and he's so far not lost. So I'm not gonna. I like the Eagles. They have their flaws. One of the biggest flaws with the Eagles is they can't be abandoning what makes them them, and that's a good run game. They have the offensive power to be able to have like A.J. Brown as the outside receiver, have a really good game. They brought him in. He's definitely elevated Hurts's play, but you cannot abandon the run game solely. And as a defensive coordinator, if you have 2 cornerbacks in the top 7, you do not play zone because you're afraid someone will beat them. I don't care how talented their receivers are. Stick a safety back there, but don't be playing zone to where you're basically just giving them free 20 yards. It's ridiculous. So
yeah, and real quick I think with D'Amico Ryans, and I think this Cardinals team is it's constructed. I think it does have talent, but the one thing I do think they are missing is a real back that can carry the load. I just don't think James Conner really. I don't think James Conner. I don't think he's a workhorse running back. 9 carries. I mean, he had 9 carries for 55 yards, but I do think that the Cardinals have figured out, like, if you give this guy too many carries, he's gonna get injured. That's just the type of back that he is.
It's
So
unfortunate.
that's one thing. That's one thing that you have to fix, and I think you definitely have to establish more of a run game. And I just think the way this offense is constructed, you can't play Josh Allen. Like, I don't think Kyler Murray could actually physically take the Josh Allen style of football. And it's just like the way, especially Kingsbury plays this offense, it's like it's a decent system, but it's like it's a system that doesn't work in the NFL. So
I agree.
Yeah, it works in college. It really does. I mean, we've seen it work many times in college, that spread offense, but it just doesn't work in the NFL. I mean, that's why so many Ohio State coaches, it reminds me a lot of the Ohio State offense, and that's why basically a lot of people in the Ohio State offense will be small and fast, and and it just doesn't work in the NFL. So that's what I gotta say on that. But let's get to the next topic. Let's get to the Chiefs versus Raiders. Questionable coaching calls for both Chiefs and Raiders. I mean, that was crazy.
Unbelievable.
This is why I think Josh McDaniels should be fired. Anyways, you can take it from here.
So I'm going to come out and say this because I know we're talking about basically questions 5 and 6 are sort of along the same line. Mm-hmm. Worst call since the no call pass interference Saints versus Rams playoff game. I know it didn't have those type of implications, but actually in the Falcons Bucks game, it did. It was not a malicious hit. Jones had the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
we'll cover both.
Yeah. So Jones had the ball in his arm, and you could see his arm went out to break the fall, so they didn't totally land on Carr. Mm-hmm. Absolutely crazy. It was not a pass interference. He didn't do that. He didn't maliciously hit the quarterback in the head, and it was a sack. My thought about a pass interference is always when it interferes with the pass, right?
Yeah.
So sorry, not pass interference. Roughing the passer is when it interferes with the pass. So if the passer's like passes the ball and then gets totally destroyed 2-3 seconds later, that's roughing the passer. But when it's roughing the passer and the passer is sacked, he knows he's going to get hit. Like, that's part of holding onto the ball. There isn't anything malicious. The player is told to go tackle the quarterback. Tom Brady, I didn't watch it in real time. I was having a hard time finding the play, but apparently someone said he got up and called for the flag and then it was thrown. I didn't see that. But I think it's the second worst call. And they both were sacks. They weren't even throwaways. They weren't even interceptions. They weren't even completions that were short yards completions. They were sacks. The NFL, we know, shows seniority. Always has, always will. They did it with Michael Vick. They would call plays for Ben Roethlisberger, for Peyton Manning, for Tom Brady. They never called it for Michael Vick. He was a running quarterback. They didn't want to show him the respect. But with that being said, and this is sort of where I feel about it, is everyone's saying, well, this was a penalty if you consider Tua's injury. I'm sorry. The NFL has got to realize that the play that was to Tom Brady, everyone was comparing it to the Tua injury where his head got blown to the ground. I want to say this right now. Tua 3 days earlier was resembling signs of a concussion. Tom Brady wasn't. Now, I'm not saying that Tom Brady couldn't have been concussed by that play, but Tua shouldn't have been on the field, right? We don't know what was going through Tua's mind, but I can tell you right now that if you look back at that hit, there is whiplash and there is certain things like hitting the exact spot in your head that can cause concussions. But if you look at that hit from Tua, there was other things going wrong. It's the same thing with Derek Carr. If you're going to start doing roughing the passer calls, you might as well add another 15 minutes to the game and review every roughing the passer flag, and that just makes another thing to the rule book. But when I would say when 75% to 80% of the football world rallies around that was a bad call, well, honestly, maybe even 99. The only person I saw that disagreed with it, which was quite ironic, was Skip Bayless. Dumbass, anyways. Excuse my language, but yeah, I mean, when 85% of the football world agrees that it's a roughing the passer call, I mean, not a roughing the passer call. Both calls, I'm with them. I think it's such a bad job on so many levels.
Yeah, and also the Tua roughing or the Tua play. Wait, was that even flagged? No, it was. It was when the Bengals dude. That was a wait, yeah, it was.
I
But
don't know
that
if
was
it.
a
Well,
I don't know because was it? I don't know. I don't. But that was a complete like body slam. Like the guy
yeah.
just picked him up and threw him, like landed on him. How is that the same? Also, that Falcons Buccaneers game came at a crucial time.
Oh yeah.
The Falcons are down. They have a chance to win. I believe it was a third down,
Yep.
and then that flag comes in.
Yep.
The Raiders, that Raiders game, not really. I don't know actually when that
Well, the
flag
Chiefs
did.
won. No, early on in the game, but the
Yeah.
Chiefs won the game, so whatever. But if they had lost the game, I mean, it changes the momentum. Chris Jones had a fumble, took the fumble
Yeah.
away. So
Yeah. I just don't. I think the NFL is a little bit becoming not too soft. I think you definitely want to prevent, and I think this is more of a political game because everyone's now like the refs especially are now with Tua. They're trying to prevent as little quarterbacks for that happening. Like the Tua, they're trying to prevent that Tua situation happening again to another quarterback. But it's like now they're going to become really conservative, and it's just I remember like looking at Brian Dawkins highlights of something on Twitter of him lighting up a Cowboys receiver, and this Cowboys receiver just going flying through the air just out of the backfield. It was hilarious. I looked at
legendary.
that highlight and man, that would never be able to
That'd be a
never be
10-game
able to fly.
suspension.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So, I mean, I think it is becoming a little too soft, but I do understand the political side of it. They're trying to prevent things. I do think that they're trying to prevent because I think that ref definitely was I mean, the ref who well, maybe not the ref that lost his job with that Tua hit, but they're trying to prevent, I guess, injuries and I guess and politically, I think that's why these refs are maybe becoming a little more how do you say this? A little more tight on those calls. I don't know. So,
Yeah, I agree. It's
um
part of
go
the
ahead.
NFL, but my gosh, oof. I have a
Yeah.
lot of words that I could not say on the show.
Yes. But let's real quickly before we end this show off, let's get to really like I look at the NFL slate of games. There's really not a ton of like good games this year. Like I mean week. I mean I can actually name it out real quick. Let me get to it. So basically tonight Bears Commanders, then you have Ravens Giants, Jaguars Colts, Patriots Browns, Bengals Saints, which is okay. Buccaneers Steelers, 49ers Falcons, Jets Packers, Vikings Dolphins, Panthers Rams, Cardinals Seahawks, Bills Chiefs, Cowboys Eagles, Broncos Chargers. So not a ton of good games. There's really just like two that is maybe must watch. There's a few other decent games, but let's get to the first. Like I think this is a must watch. Two of the best AFC teams in the NFL. Two of the best teams in the AFC. Chiefs versus Bills. What is your quick prediction for this? Quick breakdown. Yeah.
So, quick score update. I just looked. Um, it is 11 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and we have seen 13 combined points between the Commanders and the Bears,
Yeah.
and it is currently 3rd and 1 at the Chicago 43.
40.
Maybe they're doing something right this drive. I am not sure, but no, I just wanted to say that if this score ends really low, we may have a score where 2 games combined is how much one team scores
Oh
in
my
one team.
God.
I mean, it's that bad.
Yeah. Thursday night. That's even more of a pusher. Real quick, we're getting a little off topic, but real quick, that's even more of a pusher that that we should take away Thursday night games.
100% agree.
I think we're moving towards it. And also,
Well,
is this
no, because Amazon just bought the rights for the next like 10 years. So I doubt it,
really?
but we'll see.
Yeah. Is this Brian? You know that Washington Commanders
Brian
running back that
Robinson.
got shot?
Yeah.
Is this his first game back? I think,
Yep.
right?
Well, he played last game, but this is his first game starting. I
Interesting.
love how he
Interesting.
walked out of the tunnel to many men. Oh, it's such a great out. You should just watch it. Watch Brian Robinson. It's
Yeah.
great. I hate the Commanders, but gotta love Brian Robinson and his comeback story.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
going back to the Bills Chiefs, I'm surprised this game wasn't scheduled at a different time during the year because it's a 4:25 game. Should totally have been a
Yeah.
primetime game.
Yeah.
Monday night, Sunday night, maybe
Yeah.
Thursday night football. Anyways, my prediction is 31-20. I don't think it's close. I think the Bills are head and shoulders better than the Chiefs. The Chiefs have a lot of issues. You can't run the offense entirely through Travis Kelce. He's a great tight end, but you got to have other receiving threats. I am not seeing any receiving threats step up. Juju Smith-Schuster just, I mean, yeah,
Right.
I get Marquez Valdez-Scantling, MVS, not that
True.
great. I also don't like where they have no identity. It sort of goes back to the Chiefs. The Bills are like the Chiefs in that they both don't really seem to have an identity in the run game. Probably partially because their quarterbacks do run the ball. But I'm a big person when it comes late in the season. I think you need to be able to run the ball, and I think that that's going to be the Chiefs' kryptonite this game.
Right.
Is that the Bills are going to jump out maybe to a 7-10 point lead, and I just don't see the Chiefs being able to rein the offense back in. And run the ball better. Bills run better than the Chiefs. While the Bills were like 14th, I want to say the
Right.
Chiefs are closer to like 20th. So really, really bad. Yeah, I see this game being about a 2-score game.
I'm gonna say same with you. I mean, you're looking at the Chiefs cornerbacks, L'Jarius Sneed, Rashad Fenton. You know, not that great for this Chiefs team. Do
No.
you have an answer for what's his name? For Stephon Diggs, who's playing top five receiver level this year and has been he was good on the Vikings, but he's even better on the
Yeah.
Bills. Perfect system fit, perfect quarterback. You've got it made if you're Stephon Diggs, but it's like the Chiefs, like, you have to beat the Bills by running the ball, taking away possession, and it's like they don't have that. And that's why I think, like, the 49ers actually are, I think, better matched for the Bills than the Chiefs are, because that's who the Chiefs – no, I guess the 49ers are playing the Chiefs next week, but that's – like, I think if you're the Chiefs, you have to run the ball to take time away from Josh Allen because they're going to be throwing the ball. They're going to be lighting you up. And it's like they haven't done that well this season. How are they going to do it? How are they going to do it against the Bills? And this Bills running defense is really good. So I don't see them getting it done. I just don't see him getting it done. Again, I believe last week the Bills to their main carrier allowed the Steelers to have 1.8 yards per carry. That was Najee Harris.
Yeah, they're the number one run defense, and I think that's going back to sort of an earlier question where you said who could stop the Bills. The difficult part is, while they may not run the ball the greatest, their defense is literally preventing a team from keeping the ball. So if you're the number one run defense and you're preventing a team from building a lead, you can easily build multiple touchdown leads. I think that's the reason why they'll beat the Chiefs. I hope they do. I'd love to see Stephon finally sort of get that win. It'd be restitution for missing twice in the playoffs, but these are two very good teams, the two teams that are going to be in the playoffs. I can almost guarantee you, especially the Bills, but I also think the Chiefs are good enough to be in the playoffs. It's an exciting time of the year, but I am very shocked this is not in prime time, and that's all I have to say.
Yeah. I'm going to go Bills winning a close one, 27-20. Well, I should make it more high scoring because I do think it's going to be higher scoring. No, I'm going to up that. I'm going to go 38-27. Bills win. Bills get the dub. I think it's going to be a very offensive game. And they're going to have to pass the ball to Chiefs if they want to keep up with them. But I do see that plan failing around the fourth quarter when everyone gets tired. But let's get to the Cowboys versus Eagles, last topic or matchup of the day that we are covering. This is your team, man. Break it down. I don't really know. I mean, this is, I think, going to be a lot closer. I think, like, the Eagles have looked better than the Cowboys, but the Cowboys have the defense to put up with them, and they're playing really good without Dak. Is Dak coming back this week?
Dak is not. Cooper Rush most likely will make the start. I think Dak is coming back next week. Yeah, could be let's go, could be not. My prediction is 24-20. It's going to be a close game. These divisional rival games always are. I never take a divisional game and say we're going to beat them, even if they're a bad team. So you never know what's going to happen in the division. It's Dallas week. Can't stand the Cowboys. There's very few people and teams in this world that I hate as much as the Cowboys.
Yeah.
I think Cooper Rush gets exposed. I do think that the playbook is limited, and I don't think he passes enough to win in this game. I do think, it's a huge feat of excellence. They beat the Rams. The Rams, even though they're faltering, they're not a terrible, terrible team. My bold prediction is we eke it out, but we're going to have to eke it out with Jalen Hurts playing very flawless football. I think Micah Parsons is going to play well against us, but I also like our fact that we are potentially getting back our totally healthy offensive linemen. I actually have a list here. If I pull it up, it looks like I'm just making sure that it's I'm pulling up his practice schedule.
It's at Eagles. That's a little different.
Correct. It is at Eagles. I think that's and of course Dallas has been, I'm not going to lie here and say Dallas has been dominant the last couple of games.
Defensive wise, yes.
They've beat us 7 of the last 9 games. So basically for the last 4 years, Dallas has won 7 of the last, for the last 5 years, Dallas has won 7 out of 9. I mean, that's huge. And I'm not going to sit here and say the Eagles have been a better team. There's been a few very, very, very questionable calls. I could think of one that was 4 years ago. It was terrible, terrible call. But either way, they have gotten the best of us. It's a good example. It's a good opportunity to go out there. But I like the fact that basically Landon Dickerson, Jason Kelce, and Jordan Mailata, who were all banged up in one game. Jordan Mailata was banged up in the other game, but 2 starting offensive line, they all practice on a limited basis today. I would predict them all to start. That's going to be huge because Micah Parsons was going to be going against our backup second-year right tackle, and that would have actually been genuinely crappy. Actually, third-year right tackle, but anyways, it would be really bad. So our offensive line coach deserves to basically never have to work another day in his life, and he should just be the Eagles coach until he can't walk anymore because he is literally grabbing 6th-rounders and making them look like starters, and that's a feat of excellence. I really do think this is the week that everyone says, look, Cooper Rush is not better than Dak. I was sort of getting on that hype train, was like, whoa, is Dak not as good as Cooper Rush? I think Dak has his flaws, but I think that Dak's upside, I don't think we've seen Cooper Rush in a bad situation. I could be wrong, but I think this is the week that Dallas gets exposed and 24-20, and go Birds.
Yeah. This is, I think, the real test that you guys have faced. It's a big game.
Yep.
I mean, this is where I think this is a big prove-it game for the Eagles. They don't have many on their schedule. I thought you guys had the Ravens, but you don't. So It's you look at that. It's the easiest thing known to mankind. It's incredible.
It's an easy schedule.
Yeah,
I'm looking at it now. We do have an early bye, which is unfortunate. We have a bye after this game, and imagine if you go into your bye not losing a game. If you had told me that in the beginning of the season, I would have said you're lying to me. We come out of the bye and we play the Steelers, the Texans, the Commanders, the Colts, and our next hard game is the Packers. When I look at this team, if we beat the Cowboys, the only other team that even poses a threat, in my opinion, to us before the end of the season is potentially the Cowboys in Dallas. And I cannot believe I'm saying this, but a 15-1 Eagles looks more possible than ever before. Do I think it's going to happen? Absolutely not. I'm not going to lie to myself and say it is. But the fact that I'm looking at all these teams, I'm saying not one of them looks good to me besides Dallas. Now, of course, Giants, I think, will put up a fight, but it's one of those things. We'll see. But
Giants still have terrible receivers.
And their quarterback play is just being masked by an insane running game that they've had. And I think that running game will continue, but at some point your quarterback is going to have to play some hero ball. It's just the nature of the NFL.
Yeah, that's true. I think the Giants are one of those pretender teams, but I got to say Eagles, I'm going to agree with you on this one. Eagles get it done. I think it'll be close. They're going to be able to get pressure on Jalen Hurts, but if you guys can continue to control the game in the run, and that's something that you guys didn't do last year at the end, and a lot of Eagles fans were mad, but have been kind of figuring it out this year. That's going to be really important. And I think if you can lean on the run, Miles Sanders gets pretty good. That Cowboys run defense is pretty good, but I think all around you guys are a better team than the Cowboys. And it's like you guys have a better run game than the Cowboys. Your offense is better than the Cowboys. It's just, I don't know. I
Yeah.
like what the Cowboys did against the Rams, but like a few weeks ago, you would have said, if the Cowboys beat the Rams, that's an impressive win. I don't even know what the Rams are anymore. So it's like,
And they like held a 9-point lead for so long, and the Rams had every opportunity to come back, but the Rams are just so bad. Now, this defense is very good. Don't get me wrong. I think Michael Parsons
yeah.
deserves to really be in the consideration for Defensive Player of the Year. But
Nick
like when I look,
Bosa!
well, hey, I'm going to say my own. I think we've got some hella players on this line, but if I were to give a bold prediction, they don't get any sacks on Hurts, and our defense gets more sacks and more interceptions than their team. That's really bold because I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, I do think we're going to win. But we're also playing in Philly, and there's a lot of pent up aggression when it comes to Philly versus the Eagles. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna say you guys get it done. I think it's a little more defensive than the Chiefs Bills game for sure. I could see the Eagles winning it like just methodically and slowly and just let the Cowboys die slow with their run game and just take away time from the Cowboys. So I'm gonna say 24-20. But again, what I saw from what I saw from the Cowboys, I mean the Eagles last week against the Cardinals was a little concerning. So it's
there were
like,
some concerns. We were
yeah,
playing with two of our starting O-line out. I will say that couldn't really establish a rhythm. Those guys came back, and all of a sudden we started running the ball better. So who knows? But yeah,
yeah.
there's some concerns there. The Eagles are a 5-0 team, but there's still some plenty of holes, and I think they know that, and they know they need to fix it. So.
Yeah, for sure. And your guys' defense is so good that I don't see the Cowboys in this game establishing, like you said,
Yeah.
a rhythm on offense. And it could be, I mean, I don't know. Your pass rush, this is probably the best pass rush it is the best pass rush that the Cowboys
It
have
is.
faced. And so, I mean, if you get to Cooper Rush, yeah, I could see this game going nowhere. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
me too.
And everyone, this has been a lot of fun. Go
Yeah.
follow Joseph on Instagram, link in the description. Thank you everyone for watching. Joseph, this was a lot of fun. Let's do it again
Yeah,
sometime
we'll
during the
do it.
season for sure.
We have to do sort of towards the end of the season, maybe a playoff outlook. Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy. It's already week 5. We've got 12 more games, still plenty of football to play. But yeah, it's been a great start to the season. A lot of shocks, a lot of changes, and thanks for having me on here. And yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I thought for my team, man, that we were gone after week 2. But it's looking up for my team. So
yeah,
I can't complain. I can't complain. And finally, the Eagles fans can talk their smack because they are 5-0. And you can't
we can.
you can talk your smack like it used to be caught like when you were telling the Eagles could go to the NFC Championship game last year. I remember you made that take and that was ridiculous. Now that can't be seen as delusional because you guys are actually good this year. So
You
we'll
know
see.
what? You have a point, and I am happy to say that I will accept it for as long as possible. I am not holding my breath, but yeah, we are 5-0, and the truth is, if we get to 7-0, we could hypothetically lose like 6 out of the next 8 games,
And still make
and
the playoffs.
still make the playoffs. So I'm not saying that's not how I want this to go down because I do remember that the Cardinals did start the season last year 7-0, and they didn't fare so well. So I'd like to. I don't really care what our regular season schedule is as long as we're good in playoffs.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And this
So,
NFC is so weak. I don't even see a
exactly.
really extremely hard team. It's
I don't
gotten
think
worse
there is
and
one.
worse every year.
Yeah.
Worse and worse. Anyways, everyone, have a good rest of your night. I will not be back on Saturday. I'll probably be back next Wednesday for another show. This has been a lot of fun. Go have a good rest of your night. And I apologize once again for the extreme delay. That was terrible. Anyways, we'll see you guys later.
Sounds good.